Hi, Shweta. I'm really glad to be back again for the next in our series of the Memory Masters.
Hi, Sarah. Amazing to be here again and talking about forgetting today, the power of forgetting, the importance of forgetting. But just before we do that, can we just review what we did in our last video, which was all about reducing memory overload? And we talked about breathing exercises as a very powerful way to help people do that. So we talked about alternate nostril breathing, which for me personally has worked amazingly. And we sort of set the challenge, go and try this. Have you tried it?
I did try it. Maybe I didn't try it for as long a period as you were saying you did it for, but then everybody's individual. And what I was finding was that I still do prefer the breathing exercise that I use, which is just a sort of short inhale and a longer exhale. And that works for me really well if I'm trying to get back to sleep or just have a calm moment in the day. So I really enjoyed trying something different, but I'm
Mhm.
going to stick with one that I had already. Yeah,
That's fine. Breathing is so individual, like you said. Each person will find their way, and as long as it works for you, that's all that matters.
absolutely. But it is important, I think, that everybody does have a form of breathing exercise that does work for them and that they can use to sort of incorporate a little bit of calm and space into their lives, because that is the moment that our brains are taking the time to sort of connect and sort of recharge themselves as well. And that brings us in very nicely to what we're talking about today, because today we're not looking so much about building memories, or although we will later on, we're looking more at the importance of forgetting and why we forget. And it is really important to know and understand that everybody forgets. It's a natural phenomena, and it's not something that makes us weird or proves that we have a poor memory. Any person that is exposed to new information, if they did nothing about actively processing that information, would forget it over a period of time.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
just common. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us really nicely into sensory memory. For those of you who are watching and don't know what sensory memory is a type of memory that we have where we simply ask, all our senses are picking up information from the world around us continuously, but it's important that we allow that filter of sensory memory to sort of trickle and drain all the bits that we don't need, because there's so much around us all the time. We don't need to pick up on all of it. We don't need to remember all of it. So we have to forget the majority of what goes on in our sensory memory. Otherwise, it would just overwhelm us, overload us. So it's not something to be feared, or for those of us who constantly feel anxious about it, just know that this is a very natural phenomena that does take place. It's very, very normal. But there is a need to remember certain things, aren't there, Sarah?
Yeah, there is. And what you're describing there is this lovely shallow processing. And it's a form of processing that we all use, not just when we're walking down the road, but personally, I'm often reading a book or watching a film, and I'm just enjoying the moment. And I'm not intending to remember what I was reading about. And I'm enjoying the moment. That's what that shallow processing is. But if I wanted to remember something in the longer term, I'd have to do something and process it a little bit deeper. And that is when we then start to build or retain memories. And this is very well documented on the internet, so we're not going to cover this here, but the sort of techniques about reviewing and spaced repetition are important. And if anybody is studying for an exam or needing to learn something in the long term, that's the sort of technique that they ought to be using.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's talk as well about the natural way in which our brain supports our memory development. So we know that there's a system called the glymphatic system in the brain, which is active when we are asleep. So when we sleep, this glymphatic system is actually a way in which it's like a hoover that goes around our brain and removes toxins that have built up throughout the day, which allows better information processing, new synaptic development. So we have time to embed memories during that time when we're asleep. So sleep, believe it or not, which is fantastic, is a really passive and amazing way in which you can support and enhance our memory, and really the things that we need to remember, we can incorporate that during sleep. But I also want to mention this other phenomena, which is incredible that it hasn't really been talked about too much, but this idea of I have a bad memory, and we have created a memory about having a bad memory. So it's like there is a synapse in our mind somewhere that, pathway that is literally, I'm so bad at this. I have a bad memory. And when we then, as soon as we're trying to remember something, it's like, no, but I have a really bad memory. I'm going to forget this. And instantly in that moment, we'll probably drop trying to remember, all that hope about trying to remember that information or that load of washing that needs to be done or whatever. And we'll just revert back to this programming, habitual programming that we have created of, I will not remember this. So we also need to be aware that this is something that has been created and now needs to be uncreated. And we'll talk more about this in our next video, but it's just worth mentioning here.
Both really interesting points. I love the fact that when I'm asleep, my brain is cleansing itself because I love sleeping. So that's really good news. And it's also really important to be aware that these sort of self-beliefs that you have about yourself can be having that sort of impact on your memory. And there are things that we can do about it. In fact, there's a lot that we can do to make sure that we are active in forming memories. I was just a couple of days ago, I needed to post a letter, and I very typically pick the letter up from the hall table, put it in my handbag, and then it stays there for 4 days. And as we've been talking about all these different techniques recently, I thought to myself, no, visualize myself posting the letter in the letterbox. So I did that, and then later when I got to the station, I realized I posted my letter. And I think that's something that would be really useful to explore a little bit as well, is the power of visualization to help you stop forgetting. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Now that you said it, actually, I've realized that that's what I do. So I know that I have 3 or 4 things I need to do as soon as I wake up in the morning and I'm down in the kitchen. If I don't create a mental picture of I'm going to go into the kitchen and do this first, this next, then the likelihood is I will forget one of those things. And then I'll be like, oh no, I forgot to take the washing out of the machine and now everything smells of damp. So actually just taking that moment, and it is really just a moment, isn't it? We're just saying careful consideration in one moment of just that visual of down the stairs, turn the kettle on, take the load of washing out, do this, and so we've formed a pattern now. And then it's much easier when you go downstairs to think, what were those 4 things? I need to do this. Oh yeah, and this, and then this. Oh yeah, and then this. And that really relieves the burden in being downstairs and having to kind of recall something that's up in the air.
Yeah, and I think you can bring this into all walks of life. If you are reading something that you need to remember, take a moment to visualize it. If you're exploring a new concept, make sure you can visualize the concept. If you're going to be going to a meeting and there's a particular outcome you want, visualize it, and it helps you sort of move into it. I met once somebody who surfs, and he was explaining to me, big wave surfing, how he would visualize himself surfing all the big waves before a competition. It's something that will work in all areas, and maybe that's what our challenge ought to be for this week. Do you think?
Oh, definitely. Let's
Yeah.
set it.
Yeah. Okay. So the challenge this week is going to be just simply think of something in your daily life that you might forget to do, and visualize yourself doing it, and then take a check 24 hours later and see whether you had remembered to do it. It should have been actually very effortless.
Yes. Okay. I like this challenge. I'm definitely going to, I can think of already three ways in which I can use this in my life to enhance certain areas of memory. So yeah, I'm going to definitely explore this for next session. But amazing. So we've talked about how forgetting is normal. It is a normal part of memory, and that we don't want to go down the road of fearing it or creating self-critical beliefs around it. And then we've also talked a lot about setting memories that are important by carefully considering everything in the moment. And we've talked about a few techniques to do that, including visualization. So fantastic conversation here. Of course, we could go so much deeper, so much deeper. But yes,
Always.
it has been condensed for the viewers, and we would love to hear from viewers as well. So please do comment, please do send us messages, and we look forward to seeing you in our next session, which will be all about the importance of belief, self-belief, and affirmations that really enhance and support memory development. So see you guys then.
Yeah. See you then. Bye.